Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that topic is 7 signs you need to take a break or end your fat loss diet. I think this will be super helpful for a lot of people here, just because I get a lot of questions on this topic, but I'll dive into it here in a minute. But first, before I go into that, I just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. First, if you are sick of focusing on weight loss and instead want a body recomp, then my one-on-one online coaching program is for you. I help you lose body fat and build muscle with my body recomp training, nutrition, and lifestyle methods. We look at things like your lifestyle and biofeedback to individualize your training and nutrition program to you and your specific needs. There's also at least 1 to 2 bottlenecks outside of the training and nutrition protocol that we figure out that are keeping you from seeing the results that you want to see, right? This may be things like the choices you make when you're out. This could be your mindset around it. It could be things like your lifestyle habits, like your sleep, stress, how you manage stress, etc. So we really dive into those things. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the show notes, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. If you aren't interested in full coaching, I do one-on-one consultations where we troubleshoot any issues you have or map out a game plan for you for the next couple months. If you want to learn more about body recomp, I have my 75-minute masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it, and this is completely free, and you can find a link to that in the show notes as well. Next, I have, if you want to see more content from me, you can follow me on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN _. That's where I'm most active. I post the most content. You can reach out to me with any questions you have or anything like that. And then lastly, if you have found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. All right, so let's dive into today's topic. Like I said, this is going to be 7 signs you need to end / take a break from your fat loss diet. And so, again, I bring this up because I have a lot of people ask me questions about their fat loss diet. Hey, I haven't seen progress. They talk about it, and it's, man, you just need to take a break from that, right? Maybe you need to switch goals, or there's just other common mistakes that I see with it. And so I want to go over this topic. I think will be helpful for a lot of people. So in many fat loss phases, there needs to be adjustments made at some point, right? Like it's not practical to think that you can just push through and just keep going, right? Like at some point, or it's not practical to think that you're not going to have to you're just going to set your macros, boom, you're good to go. Then you're going to be where you want to be. And that's very rarely is that the case, right? Sometimes you don't have to make adjustments. You can't just go all the way through. But again, at some point, things are going to slow down, right? So again, just realize that you might have to make it a potential adjustment here. Maybe you need to drop your calories, whatever it may be. But there's other things that we're going to look at here that's, okay, hey, maybe it's not an adjustment you need to make. It's just you might need to take a break from fat loss dieting for a period of time. And so again, this is just having this understanding that you might need to make an adjustment. But again, if you're looking for these things that we're about to talk about, it's not necessarily the adjustment you need to make. It's likely that you need to just end it. That's what we're going to go over today, those signs that you need to do that. How come we can't just fat loss diet forever? When you restrict your energy intake for long periods of time, your body adapts to this. It finds ways to conserve energy, really to keep you alive. It's more so a survival mechanism, not super helpful in today's world, but very helpful as we evolved. So this makes fat loss tougher over time. Okay. And then this leads to the main issue with this is adherence, right? If you've been dieting for a long period of time, discipline can go down the drain or it can get tougher. I'm sure we've all been there. The longer you do it, it's just, this kind of sucks. I'd rather just not focus on this. Your discipline and just your general feeling towards fat loss just goes down. Your body will do a lot of things in its power to make this tough. So again, this is partly a survival mechanism, but also it ends up being the adherence that's the big problem, right? And then again, it's like discipline. When discipline's down, it can make sticking to a calorie deficit very challenging. It's already challenging to do it in general, even if you do have the discipline. But if you're lacking that discipline because of these things that are popping up, it's going to make it even tougher. So taking a break from fat loss dieting for a period of time may help your discipline in the long run. The reason I brought up the discipline thing is I had this conversation with a guy. He reached out. I'm not as lean as I want to be yet, but I haven't really dropped weight in 4+ weeks. And so the thought is like, well, you just need to keep going. But it's the fact that he's not really seeing the results he wants. That kind of lowers your willpower around it. Like you're just not as motivated to do it. You also have all these other things going on that are fighting you. And it's now your discipline starts to take a hit. So it's, yeah, maybe you need to take a break, but also the fact that discipline is low is what's also causing you to not be able to stick to what you're doing. So it's a physiological thing, but I think it's also a mental thing as well too here with this. So let's just go over a few things too before we dive into the actual things that you need to look for. So if you're not dieting for a bodybuilding show, photo shoot, or to make weight for a competition, there really shouldn't be any time where you must push through to keep losing more body fat at all costs. Really, the only times we would do that is, okay, so you have a bodybuilding show, you have a certain date that you have to be on stage, you have to have there's a criteria that you need to meet. And again, we can dive even further into like, how serious are you? What level are you doing? things like that. But either way, like that's going to be something that you're probably going to push through in a fat loss phase. I think people see that and then they think that's what they need to do. Oh, so-and-so got on stage, they got super lean, they had to really push through, they just pushed through it, and that's what I need to do. And again, that's not necessarily the case, right? Like things like we'll talk about here start to suffer, and in this specific case, it's you're not really worried about your training performance. You're just trying to get like as lean as you can. You're not really worried about, like, we are worried about your health, but you're okay if it takes a little bit of a backseat here because we're trying to reach this goal, right? And again, this goes into how serious are you about this? What's your level? Are you a pro bodybuilder? Are you an amateur? These are conversations that you need to have and think about. But either way, it's you're gonna push through those things because you're trying to get a specific like end goal, and we're not necessarily worried about like your health kind of takes back seat, right? Think about professional athletes. Is what they're doing the most healthy thing for like their health long term? Probably not, but they're okay with that because they have this goal. And so some of these things end up taking a back seat. Whereas we have somebody that is a general population client, you don't have a bodybuilding, you're not aspiring to be a professional bodybuilder or anything like that. It's like we need to make sure that your health is in a good spot. There's no reason that your health should take a back seat to just getting leaner. That's not, again, if you're somebody that you're okay with that, then that's a different conversation. But in most, I would really push you on that. Is that really what you want? Is that going to be the best case for you? But then we take a photo shoot, same thing. Like you have to look a certain way. You want to get a certain level of leanness. So again, we might push through there a little bit more to make weight for a competition. I had a client who does MMA, and like he had to get to a certain weight class. In that situation, it's not, oh, we got to take it slower. You're hungry. You're super hungry. Your training's going down the drain. We'll back off. No, he has to make that weight, or he's not going to be able to fight and do what he wants to do. So it's like in those situations, you do have to push through at certain periods of time, and you have to be okay with maybe some of these things taking the back seat. But if you're not doing these things, then and things start to show up and it's your fat loss is really slow, you're just having a really hard time sticking with it or whatever it may be, you're better off taking a break and then coming back later. Fat loss is always going to be there, right? It's not like it's going to disappear and you can't do it at some point. Like you can always come back to it. In most cases, if you have to lose like 15 to 20 pounds plus or more, you will likely have to go at it in multiple different fat loss phases anyways. And that's, again, something that's like a truth that like nobody wants to accept, of like, oh, if somebody has 50 pounds to lose, they're like, I'm just going to do it all in one shot and then I'm going to be good to go. And again, unfortunately, that's not the case. Yeah, let's dive into these things that happen in terms of, okay, so, what is a good sign that I need to take a break from fat loss dieting and go to maintenance or go to a building? We'll talk about options at the end here that you can do. All right, so the first one is your weight hasn't budged in 4+ weeks despite trying to actively lose weight. So if things haven't moved despite your attempts, it might be time to take a break, especially if you have already lost 10% or more of your body weight. Or let's say you've been trying to diet for the past 8 to 16 weeks. So you've been dieting for 8 to 16 weeks already. Things haven't moved for 4+ weeks. Probably time to look at taking a break. Again, you could always check adherence, see where that's at. But again, from the mental side of things, you're just getting to that point now where it's like, all right, we've been pushing this for a long period of time. Things haven't moved. We're probably better off letting you eat a little bit more food for a period of time. This is especially true, though, if you've already lost 10% or more of your body weight. That's just a sign. Again, this is typically that kind of number where things will start to kick in that really slow down weight loss at around that 10% mark. 10% of body weight, 10% of your body weight, right? So 200 person, that would be about 20 pounds. So in that situation, again, it's like you shouldn't continue to push this fat loss phase if it's been 4+ weeks and your adherence is good, you're really pushing it. Again, that's a sign that you need to get away from that. So like I said, it may be an adherence issue or you need to make a calorie adjustment, right? Like that is something too. It's been 4+ weeks. Have you changed your have you looked at adherence? Have you changed your calories as well, right? Because it's not always going to be the straight shot where whatever you were dropping weight on initially might not be the same amount of energy that you need to drop to continue to drop weight. That might change. But if you've those checked and it still isn't happening, it's a sign you need to take a break, whether it be for mental or physical reasons, right? I hit on that mental side because I think that's something that people don't really think about, is the mental side of things. Yeah, physically it's going to be tougher, but mentally trying to push through that can be really challenging. That's my first sign there. Again, I go back to this guy I talked to on Instagram. He was just telling me that I was like, how long has your weight not moved? And 4+ weeks. It's, man, you're just better off just putting yourself in he had lost 10% or more of his body weight. It had been 24 weeks, I think, or something like that he hadn't lost weight, or that he had been dieting for fat loss. And man, you just need to go to a maintenance phase for a little bit of time. Like, you're already there anyways based on what's going on. So you might as well like purposely be trying to do that, really push your training, build good habits, and then you can always come back to fat loss in a certain period of time. But you're going to just feel like you're banging your head against the wall if you keep pushing that. So that's my big first sign there is what's been going on from an actual weight loss perspective. Number two, and this is a big one, is training performance is suffering. If you aren't competing for something and your training performance is suffering, it's time to take a break. So again, aren't competing, being like bodybuilding, photo shoot, stuff like that. And again, we're not trying to get to a certain level of leanness. We're just trying to, this is for life. You just want to look better overall. You want to be healthier overall. And your training really starts to suffer. It's time to take a break, right? Once training performance suffers, your risk of muscle loss increases. And that's not going to be great for your long-term look. Because again, if we keep dieting down, training suffering, we're not really able to, in our training, we're not able to push it and progressively overload, and we continue to drop weight, chances are you might lose some muscle in that process. Now, you could get it back for sure. Just like it can come back, but again, it's just not going to be great for your look, and a higher chance of like weight rebound as well too, right? So we want to look at training performance. Now, in a fat loss phase, training is probably not going to be as great as it is when you are closer to your maintenance or in a small surplus, but I think it shouldn't also just be garbage. If that's the case, we have to look into things here. Number three, you're just simply unmotivated to keep restricting. If you aren't motivated to keep going, take a break. There's nothing wrong with this. This is, again, this could go back to, hey, weight hasn't moved for 4+ weeks. And again, if adherence isn't there, you have to look into that, right? If adherence isn't there, are you unmotivated to keep like doing this? Is it just not a great time for you to fat loss diet? Because otherwise, if you do this where you just keep trying to push through and like you're not as motivated to drop more body weight, you're going to find yourself mentally dieting, but not physically. So it's going to feel like you're banging your head against the wall here, and this is also going to hurt your confidence in your ability to drop weight, right? Where now it's like, oh, I'm a failure, I can't do this. This is how it always is for me, and you end up getting in this like hopeless mindset, and that's not what we're trying to build here. Again, just had a client recently. He was in like a recomp phase for a while and his calories were a little bit higher. We were in a small deficit. He was dropping weight. And then he was like, hey man, I'm ready for a fat loss phase. I was like, all right, let's do it. I think you're ready too. And it was right around summertime, like right around like when pools started opening, and it was just 6 to 8 weeks of weight just not moving down. And it's just like, all right, I brought it up a couple times, but then finally I think it clicked in his head of, I just don't think this is a great time for me to fat loss diet. Maybe we go back to the recomp here for a little bit. This just summer, there's too much going on. I got too much going on. It's hard to continue to push this fat loss phase. And to me, that was good because we needed to do that, because otherwise he would have just developed this, I just can't lose body fat. What's wrong with me? This is how I am. I suck at this. And that's going to bleed into everything else that we do in the future. And so it was just best to be like, hey, let's just add a little bit more calories in, get you a little bit more flexibility, really focus on your training, because that's the best thing that we can do right now. And that option of fat loss diet will always be there when maybe you don't have as much going on. That's a big thing, right? The option to fat loss diet is always going to be there. It's not like you fat loss diet now, and this is the only time you can do it. And if you miss out on it, you're just destined to never lose any body fat, right? That's not the case. You have that option to fat loss diet at any point. If you find that you're super unmotivated to keep restricting, this may be a sign that you need to take a break from fat loss dieting, because if you're not doing that, if you're not actively restricting in some way, it's going to be tough for you to lose body fat, right? So number 4 is going to be low energy levels. Again, if you aren't trying to do some sort of competition, again, photo shoot, bodybuilding, and you're having trouble doing your everyday activities because your energy levels are low, it's a sign you need to take a break. You have to, again, at that point, if this is starting to affect everything that you're doing, you're just not feeling great throughout the day, let's take a break from fat loss dieting. Why would we keep trying to push that? Let's get you a little bit more food, really make sure that weight isn't like trending up. We're just going to keep that weight around the same, get you a little bit more food, get your energy levels up. You feel better. Now you're going to be more motivated to hit this. But again, we take this from a standpoint of you have to make weight for a competition. You have to make weight for something. You have to do a bodybuilding show. You have to present yourself at a certain leanness. You're unfortunately going to have to push through some of these low energy levels, right? So keep that in mind. And again, I also don't want this to be like, if the moment that you feel low energy, you should just cut it out completely. That's not the case, right? I do think there's going to be some amount of your energy levels are going to go down a little bit if you're dropping body fat. But this is to the point to where it's, man, I'm just so tired. I freaking don't want to do anything. Do we really need to keep pushing that at that point, right? So there is some sort of like, it's not like it's not an all or nothing where, oh, energy levels went down a little bit. Great. All right. I got to stop doing fat loss. That's not the case either. But again, if these really affect your day-to-day activities and it's just feels like no matter what you do, you just can't get yourself moving. Okay. Probably sign you need to take some sort of a break. Don't overlook sleep here, though. This is something too when people come to me with low energy levels. It's just the first thing I'm looking at is sleep. That has to be your main focus there on that is your sleep. So definitely don't overlook that. I would really exhaust all options there on that first before thinking that it's like anything that you're doing or any supplement that you need to take. It's likely sleep that's causing that. So number 5 is hunger and cravings are through the roof, and it's making it tough to adhere. Hunger is tricky because in order to lose fat, there needs to be some hunger involved, right? This is a weird thing that I was explaining to clients the other day where we're trying to drop body fat. In order to that, we probably need to be a little hungry, but that's like the thing that we're trying not to, it's something that we're trying to lower it as much as we can, but also knowing that is a good thing there with that, because if you're not ever hungry or feel like some sort of hunger, are you really losing body fat? Probably not. So it's like a thing that we're chasing in a way, even though it like sucks, because again, yeah, it's that tricky thing there with fat loss. But again, if this gets to the point to where it's like almost unmanageable, you need to take a break from fat loss dieting. So if you're at the point where it's just like, you're just ravenously hungry all day long, all you can think about is food, your cravings are just like crazy, that might be a sign that you need to increase your calories for a little bit, right? Maybe you're just too low energy for now and you just need to take a break. And again, we'll talk about what those breaks look like, how long and things like that. But hunger is weird too, though, right? Because again, like I said, we want some hunger, but we don't want too much. But also hunger is like, what is that? I think it's different for everybody. Are you hungry no matter like all throughout the day? Are you only hungry during certain times? Also, are you like hungry before you eat, or is it just like right after you eat? These are all things that we need to take into consideration here, because I think it's probably a good thing if you're in a fat loss phase and you're getting to the point to where it's time to eat and you're like pretty hungry. I think that's a good sign. Now, if you just ate an hour ago and you're super hungry, we need to look into this a little bit more, right? Is it food choice? Is it just, hey, you are been dieting for so long, you need to take a break? Again, these are all things that we chat about and figure out with the client. So again, if hunger and cravings are through the roof, and that makes it tough to adhere, you might want to look at taking a break from fat loss dieting. Number 6 is going to be libido is shot. If you're finding that your libido has gone down the drain, this is a sign you need to take a break from fat loss dieting. And again, this is going to come back to testosterone will probably lower when we are fat loss dieting and we're lower energy or we're just too lean. You may find that your libido gets shot, and just again, that probably has to do with testosterone levels being low, or your sex hormones, I should say. Again, we want to pay attention to that. That's probably something that people don't really pay attention to, but I urge you to pay attention to that. Again, this goes to this like concept of if you're not dieting for like a bodybuilding show or trying to make a weight class for something, is losing your libido worth trying to continue to push through to get leaner? That's ultimately up to you on that, right? What you decide there on that, but I would think about that. Number 7 is your menstrual cycle is out of whack. So if you're having irregular periods and didn't used to, it's a sign you need to take a break from fat loss dieting. Again, this comes back to your hormones are probably out of whack at that point. And again, this has to do with being in a low energy state, maybe being too lean, whatever it may be. So again, if you're starting to notice these menstrual cycle irregularities, it's a tough word to say, you want to look into potentially taking a break. So those would be the 7 signs that I would look at there. So now, okay, so maybe you have a couple of these. So what do you do? So if you have either a few of these symptoms or ones that are important to you, then you need to. So again, if you have a lot of these symptoms, probably a sign you need to take a break. You're not dieting for a bodybuilding show. You're not dieting for a photo shoot, not trying to make weight. And you have 2, 3, 4 of these. Okay, probably a sign that you need to take a break from fat loss dieting. Or let's say, for example, like for you, just your libido dropping down that's a no-go for me. My relationship's important. I need to make sure my libido stays up. Again, that's where you have to have that tough conversation there with it. So what are our options? So our first option is you take a diet break. Okay, so this would be 1 to 6 weeks, 1 to 8 weeks at your maintenance calories. So we're just temporarily taking a break from fat loss dieting. This is a shorter term thing. Again, you could take 1 week, you could take 2, you could take 4 weeks, 6, whatever you feel like works best for you. There's no right or wrong answer here in terms of like how long you do this. And again, in that diet break, I've talked a lot about diet breaks in the past. So again, what we're going to do, we're going to bring your calories up to maintenance. You'll probably add food via carbohydrates, and we're just going to try to maintain that weight within 2.5% of where you're currently at. So again, you have that option there to take a diet break. And I think these are super helpful. So don't sleep on these. You could do this where you could almost do it like a deload where it's like, hey, every 6 to 8 weeks, I'm going to take one of these. This helps me stick to it long term. That's an option for you. And then you have option 2, right? This is to end the fat loss phase for a longer period of time / go to maintenance into a reverse diet. So instead, you take a longer period of time out of fat loss and focus on building your body up, right? Think anywhere from 4 to 52 weeks plus at this point. You can either go straight to maintenance cals or reverse diet to there. The worse your symptoms are, the more I would push you to go straight to maintenance. So if you're displaying a lot of these. They're really bad, low energy levels, libido's shot, menstrual cycles just out of whack, you're super hungry, things like that. Probably a sign you need to go straight back to your maintenance. If you're feeling these a little bit, it's not terrible. Maybe you just reverse your way back up. You slowly add calories back in to get back to your maintenance. But again, these would be if you're pretty lean, you got about close to as lean as you want to get, or you're just like, you know what, I really want to take a break from fat loss dieting for a period of time, then this is where we would implement something like a building phase here at this point. So again, you have these two options. Take a diet break. This is a shorter term, just break in between fat loss phases, anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks ish, right? It can be really as long as you want them to be, but let's just say on average 1 to 6 weeks, or we just end the fat loss phase completely, get you back to your maintenance, and we stay there for a longer period of time, again 4 to 52 weeks plus, and we're really pushing training, getting your body back in a good position, and really building your body up at this point. And then you return back to a fat loss phase, and you should be refreshed and able to push it even more than before. That is what I would look for and what I would do. So let me know if you guys have any questions on this topic, and I will chat with you next time.